his stupid little eyes. I love him so much.
Boogie, I got a question. The elephant in the room.
Oh yeah, that's what
So,
used to be me.
bariatric surgery and divorce have a
hmm
high correlation.
Yes, it does.
And I had no idea that was something I learned recently. Do
Yep,
you think it's
85% of marriages, they tell you this in the class. 85% of marriages fail within 2 years after gastric bypass bariatric surgery, something to that effect. And there's a lot of different reasons. If you look into the research, sometimes it's the person who gets the surgery, they think they're better than their significant other afterwards, so they go and move on. Sometimes the significant other feels insecure and thinks, oh, well, this person doesn't want to be with me anymore, so they preemptively move on. Sometimes the person who was the person not getting the surgery was forced into some sort of caretaker role, and that killed the marriage, and that is part of what killed ours, I think.
this
And
is the
then
caretaker post surgery, that role?
right. The caretaker post surgery is like, well, what's my role in this marriage now? What am I supposed to do? And so, like, you read the resources, and I was reading the resources, like, there's going to be a huge redefinition of the marriage afterwards, and you've got to figure out what you want that redefinition to be. And it looks like my ex-wife wanted the redefinition to be, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to be back home with my family. And, you can't say no. You just like, all right, that's what you want. That's what we'll do.
So, like, the caretaker thing is interesting to me because I'm not there, but I've always sort of thought she must have been some sort of caretaker while you were at your biggest, right? I mean, you didn't
Right.
go
Absolutely.
grocery
Absolutely.
shopping. You didn't,
No, we still grocery shopped once a week, and
all
I
right,
mean,
well, then I'm
I
wrong.
was still pretty active, but there
But
was
weighing
like,
over 500 pounds is kind of being handicapped.
oh, it's straight up, yeah, it's straight up. I was a prisoner in my own fucking body, dude. It was miserable. I was almost 600. Forget 500. I was over 600.
Jesus.
I was five
Wait, you were
587.
over 600
Oh, sorry,
almost?
almost 600. 587 is where I was.
Okay.
And yeah, but then I was okay until like 35, but then the back went, and then the knees went, and then everything else went, and my body just couldn't do it anymore. Then my T levels went crazy, and even with testosterone supplements, there's only so much of those can do. So I'm able to maintain muscle, but I'm not really able to build muscle, and I'm in chronic pain all the time. And so yeah, there's a point where during the last year prior to the surgery, that woman was having to do everything around the house. She was the man and the woman of the house. I concentrated on my job and my job only, and she allowed everything else to be taken care of. If there was a chore to do, if there was a bill to be paid, it was entirely her job, right? And then to get like really into the graphic details of it, there were periods of time where she was my physical caretaker as well, changing wounds and or changing, dressing on wounds and it literally helping me from one end of the house on the other on a really particularly painful day, or helping me fly to VidCon. That would involve pushing a wheelchair at points. And so she was very, very much a caretaker, and a very, very good caretaker at that.
And then post surgery, she was still the caretaker, but somehow that role wasn't the same to her.
It began to diminish. But I'm going to be. There's only so much I'm allowed to say, because in my mediation, there's like a non-disparage clause, which I asked for. That she didn't ask for. I asked for it. But that said, I want to be very respectful, regardless of anything like that. But that said, and that strain has always been my anxiety disorder. That strain has always been my depression, and it just we never really learn how to deal with it the way that a couple that's going to be successful in that situation will learn to deal with it, And I can blame her, I can blame me. I think we're both at blame. That's how we both feel about it. And it just kind of like, there was work I needed to do, there was work she needed to do. We didn't both do the work. We both did a lot of great stuff, but we made a lot of mistakes. And at the end of the day, I think she just decided she didn't want to be married to someone who was broken anymore, and she missed her family, and she wanted to be with him. And I think that's okay,
Did you start like kind of exhibiting like maybe distance when you were saying, I'm going to get this surgery, like it's set in stone, we're doing it? Because that was kind of like an on the horizon thing of, I'm not going to be as needed.
No, not really. Surprisingly, it wasn't until a post-surgery area where I think she realized that I was going to be okay without her that she really, really started considering the idea. I think prior to that, I think for the most part, she was dedicated to the long haul and just things. It's really hard. Like I'm only a few months out of it now. I knew that the marriage was over in October. My audience didn't know the marriage was over until December.
Yeah.
Or maybe November.
When did you get the surgery?
I got the surgery in August. So, and honestly, there was plenty of signs prior to that, almost 2 years prior to that, that we were struggling, we were having issues, and we were trying to do the work to keep everything working, But what it really came down to, I think there was one night that I kind of talked about it on live stream, like I had a nervous breakdown. And, my ex-wife is talks to me. She's like, Steve, you got nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be okay. I don't know why, but at the end of the day, it turned out to be, I guess, what she was really thinking. So who knows? It's really hard to dissect it at this point, and it's going to take me years of therapy to fully dissect it, right? At the end of the day, this is where I'm at with it, though. I'm angry because it's hard not to be angry, I think, when something you worked on for 7 years fails, right? And I'm sad because it's hard to not be sad after 7 years worth of a failure. But I've always been someone who tries to focus on the positive rather than the negative. So me and her still talk as friends. We're keeping it as friendly as humanly possible. She's dealing with her new shit. I'm dealing with my new shit. She's dealing with her old shit. I'm dealing with my old shit. And we help each other out in that respect. But I there's a lot of really good things in my life right now, things I'm not comfortable talking about and things that I am comfortable talking about. But whether it's just like being able to get up and walk and stand on my feet for 10 or 15 minutes, right? Or to be able to exercise, or to be able to go to a store and look at all the collectibles or hang out at GameStop for 20 minutes and talk to the manager there for a while, or go to a restaurant and sit in a booth, or, just go walk a little bit down on Dixon Street, or go to a movie theater without feeling like I'm in miserable pain. Or buying a brand new wardrobe, or digging out clothes that I stopped wearing a decade ago because they didn't fit in them, and start putting those shirts on, or finally putting on all those Loot Crate shirts they sent me over the years, and just like making new friends and meeting new people and going new places. And I'm just trying to concentrate on that.
Yeah, that's one of those things that people don't realize is like when you're big, you can't sit in a booth. Whenever I'm with someone who's heavy, like, and I always make sure that I'm the first one into the restaurant. So when the waiter asks like table or booth, I can like say table. So there's it's not on them at all. And there's no moment of embarrassment for them. That happened like, I don't know, a few weeks ago. I was with, I won't say who I was with. I was with somebody who was heavy, and their wife was even heavier than they were.
Oh yeah.
And I knew going in, I was like, these people cannot fit in this booth. I was like, this is a table couple. I'm gonna head this off of the pass. Make sure there's no moment of embarrassment.
That I never even considered, because like I've done that before, where like I've gotten into the restaurant first, and I'm with a heavy friend, and they're like table or booth, and I always say booth because booths are more comfortable, and I just think I like sitting on the cushion instead of the hard carved out wood, and so then like I'll slide in, and then you notice like the stomach, or if they're a woman, like the boob imprint of like the table, like they're having to like slide in like so tight, like a credit card.
What's it?
A swipe, like
leading into the separation?
I will tell you. Hold on. Before you do, let me answer the question. So about 2 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, I guess is closer. I'm out at La Huerta with a new friend and my roommate, and the new friend doesn't really know much about like me yet. They're just getting to know me, and they're like, "Hey, we would like a booth, please." And I'm like, "Oh no. Well, why not try it, right? Like, who cares, right? I don't embarrass myself, but let's see." And so for the first time ever in that restaurant, this restaurant that's been there for 20 years, I've been in Fayetteville for 20 years, I've eaten there for 20 years. The first time I slid right into a booth and took a photo or whatever.
What kind of restaurant was it?
A little Mexican place, which is really awesome.
Oh, Senor Boogie!
Right, exactly.
Oh, where is the rest of you? Yeah.
But like fajitas
You're going to lose money on this. Yeah.
Fajitas are like a perfect option because you can box 75% of it up right there, right? And then just eat the meat, right? And I'll have a little bit of cheese on it too. I'm not perfect, but I'll put a little queso on it or whatever, and then that goes down, and then I get 3 more meals out of it when I get home. I used to order the double wide fucking fajitas and eat them there, and now I'm just like, oh yeah, could you box 75% up and I'll take a quarter of it for here? And they're like, really? And I'm like, yep.
So I've been trying to get in. Leading into the separation, back when we were on that, was it like fighting or just distance and like ghosting?
We never ghosted, and we never fought that much about it. My ex went home for a week, about 5 days, honestly, to visit family and to help out up there. And then she came home, and she was a little distant, but maybe like 10%, 5%, 10% for about a week. And eventually I'm like, are we okay here, or like what's going on? And she's like, I was going to be honest with you. I've been thinking about going back home. And I'm like, yep, all right, well, we can schedule that. Let's just schedule that. You want to spend a couple more weeks up there, that's fine. I did really well with that last week. And I was afraid at the time, my major focus of that 5 days she was gone was I was just not recovered enough from the surgery yet. I was still having trouble walking. I was still having trouble standing. I didn't think I was going to be able to take care of the house. I didn't think I was going to be able to take care of the dog. But it was like an emergency situation. She had to go home. And then I'm like, well, when are you thinking? She goes, I'd like it to be kind of like a trial separation kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. So are you? I mean, are we?
That wasn't out
working?
of the blue. You said there were 2 years leading into this.
Right. But I mean, there were 2 years that we were like arguing from time to time, and probably more than a couple should. But nothing like, there was never any distance. Like I feel like we were in love the last day that we were together, the last day before the real separation in November, as we were the day we met. It just didn't work. That was the thing. It just didn't work, And I think that's the hardest part about it, is just to say, we really genuinely care about each other, and we probably always will. It just doesn't work, and that sucks. That sucks, man. But that's where it was.
Like Patrice O'Neal, like years ago in one of his O&A clips, he'd always talk about relationships and shit. And like he said something that I was listening to it recently, and like it resonated with me a little bit, where he was like, man, if you're single, or I'm sorry, if you're in a relationship and there's no kids involved, like there's no excuse to be having a bad time. Like if you're having a bad time in a relationship and there are no kids involved that you need to stay together for, then like what are you doing? You're wasting time. But like in the moment, it can be so hard to see through that, because of course you have like fears of like, oh, what if I don't find somebody else, or what if this really is the thing and we're one hump away from the green pastures, we're one more argument away from the good times where we all see eye to eye. But
right.
I don't know. I think that's a really wise thing. Damn shame.
It is. And I mean, Patrice O'Neal is amazing. And any relationship ending sucks sometimes, but I mean, at the end, especially when you put that kind of time into it and that kind of effort into it that we'd put in, but there's a certain point where you just reach, you don't want to put more good money after bad, right? There's a time you walk away from the slot machine, right? And I think that's just the point that we got. And now that I was back on my feet, and now that I was healthier than I've ever been, and more capable than I've ever been, I mean, at the end of the day, you can call her every name in the book, and people certainly have, but she put up with my shit for 7 years, and she put up with me at my worst. And I wish she could have been around for me at my best, because I'm already better right now than I was with the day I met her by a lot. Physically better, mentally better, just the better person overall, all around. And I wish she was here to enjoy that, but she doesn't want to be, and I don't want her to be now, because she doesn't want to be, right? But she carried me to that finish line, man, straight up to the surgery and post-surgery. That month after that surgery, I wouldn't do that to a nurse that I paid. I wouldn't do that I wouldn't do that to a fucking murderer. I wouldn't make them send them to the misery that we went through that month.
What if they molested a bunch of gymnasts?
Well, then I wouldn't want him changing my wounds, probably. But let's stab that guy.
He's not going to molest you. You're not a gymnast.
He is a doctor trained in sports medicine, so he's going to be good at this.
Wow! Holy crap! The other thing, one more thing I want to say about the whole marriage thing. Everybody has these like crazy conspiracy theories, like Boogie's lying, like he's not telling the truth about what happened. Like she got blacked, she got cucked. Even if he got cucked, even if she did, like who cares? Like right, like relationships end. But there's like no truth to any of that. We were literally together 24 hours a day. There was no opportunity for it until she went home, and there's like nobody up there that she would be interested in.
Boogie, I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I think that's just people trying to get a rise out of you.
That's probably it. And I guess I'm giving them what they want right now, but it's one of those things that it does get a rise out of me because it's so factually inaccurate. Right, like
that's the best way to get a rise out of somebody.
It really, but I forget who it was. I think it was What the Buck, Buck from YouTube. I forget his actual name, but What the Buck was this TV show on YouTube, and he said sometimes you just have to let people be wrong about you, and I'm learning that, but it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to not want to correct them and say, of course, I'm none of those things. With one of the theories that came out after a while is, I'm a woman beater, and I must have beat Des and tortured Des every day. And I'm like, no, it was tough living with somebody.
Like she couldn't run away.
Like what she did. Like she can't dial 911 for fuck's sakes, right?
This stuff is so easy to see when you're not in the driver's seat. I'm looking at this, and I'm
totally got this image of Jabba the Hutt with slave Leia.
Right.
Oh, I had something about a question from back when you